Story 1. We took the exit for gas, but the town wasn't on any map. This happened to me in 2019. I was 23, driving cross-country with my girlfriend, Kayla. We had just finished visiting her parents in northern Nevada, and we were headed back toward Denver. The plan was to make it in 2 days. The route was mostly open highway, uneventful desert stretches, and long pockets of silence. It was around 6:40 p.m. when we realized we were nearly out of gas. We hadn't passed anything for over an hour. The desert was gray, dusty, endless. I remember Kayla quietly scrolling through her phone, looking for gas stations along our route. "There's one if we take this next exit," she said. "Says it's called Stowe." I'd never heard of it, and I've driven that stretch more than once. But the map showed a little dot, maybe 10 minutes off the main road. I took the exit. Right away, I noticed something was strange. The signage was old, outdated. The kind with flaking green paint and white reflective letters that had mostly peeled off. The road narrowed quickly. It became one lane. I kept checking the dashboard. 11 miles of fuel left. No big deal. The town was supposedly 6 miles in. About 2 miles in, Kayla lost signal. I noticed it too. Our phone still showed GPS positioning, but the map had cleared, like it forgot where we were. "What happened to the map?" I asked. Kayla refreshed it. The screen reloaded, but now we were just a little blue dot in the middle of a gray void. "No roads," she said. "No towns, just blank." We were still moving forward. Around the 4th mile, we saw the sign. "Welcome to Stowe," but the wooden post it was nailed to was nearly snapped in half. We slowed down. There was a gas station ahead, maybe another 100 feet. It didn't look abandoned exactly. The lights were on, dim, flickering, and the windows were tinted a soft orange from the inside. The gas pumps looked older than anything I'd seen, still functional. Kayla got out to look around while I checked the pump. No credit card slot, just a lever, the kind you'd pull down manually. "Cash only," I said aloud. Kayla tried to take a picture of the sign. The faded paint had an odd slogan, "Stowe Station, come back again." She pointed her phone, tapped the screen, and took a photo, but the image never saved. It just blinked black, and when she checked her camera roll, nothing. She tried again. Same thing. "Maybe it's your phone," I said. She handed it to me. I tried, took a picture of the gas pump. It flashed, then vanished. Every photo we took just disappeared. We didn't speak for a few seconds. The silence felt heavier than before. There was no wind, but I remember the way my shirt clung to me. The air felt thick. I walked up to the glass door of the gas station. Inside, there was a small counter and what looked like a fridge with sodas. An old man was sitting behind the counter, not moving. I opened the door. A bell above it didn't ring, just silence. The man didn't look up. "Hey, do you guys still take cash?" I asked. He nodded slowly, didn't speak. I gave him a 20. He didn't reach for it, just stared at my hand. Finally, I placed it on the counter and he blinked, just once, then nodded again. As I walked back outside, Kayla was standing still, looking up at the windows of the small motel across the road. "All the curtains moved at once," she whispered. "I swear I saw it." There were no cars in the motel lot, no movement. We filled the tank and got back in the car quickly. I turned around in the lot, trying to find the same road we came in on, but the road was gone, literally gone. The way we entered was now just desert scrub and loose sand. No path. I kept driving anyway, circling back around the other side of town, hoping maybe there was another road out. The map was still blank. We drove for 15 minutes, and somehow ended up back at the gas station. Again, same $20 bill still on the counter inside. Same man, same stare. That's when Kayla whispered it. This place. It knew we were coming. We didn't know how long we'd been driving. The sky was darker now, but the sun hadn't set. It just seemed dimmer, like it was filtered through tinted glass. We drove into town again, this time trying a different path, toward what looked like a main street. The buildings were intact but lifeless. All the stores had signs but no hours. Every single door had a closed sign hanging inside, even though some of the lights were still on. We parked and walked down the sidewalk. At the corner, there was a diner, one of those mid-century ones with a glass front and chrome trim. Inside were booths, a bar counter, an old jukebox. Empty, but every table had menus, half opened, napkins placed neatly, glasses with water in them. It looked like people had just stepped out. We went in. The bell above the door finally rang, but the sound was wrong. It rang 3 times, on its own. I looked up at the clock behind the bar. It said 11:17. I looked to the kitchen. Another clock, 1:53. The one above the jukebox, 9:08. I froze. "Kayla," I said, "look at the seconds." All 3 clocks had different hour and minute hands, but the second hands, they were moving, perfectly synchronized. Tick, 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 same second. Same movement, like they were all responding to a single pulse. Then we saw the 4th clock. It was behind the register, a large circular face with no hands, just a mirror at the center. Kayla stepped toward it slowly. "I think it's She stopped. In the reflection, we could see the back of the diner, but something was wrong. There was someone sitting at the booth behind us. I turned around immediately, empty. I turned back to the mirror, still there. A figure, too blurry to make out. Just enough to see they were facing us, not moving. We backed out of the diner slowly. The moment we crossed the threshold, the bell above the door didn't ring. The lights inside flickered once, then went out. We got in the car and tried to drive again. We eventually found a road. It wasn't the one we entered from, but it led away from Stowe. At least it looked that way. We drove for nearly an hour, or what felt like it. No signs, no cars, just a straight road and the sound of the engine humming. Kayla checked her phone again. Still no service. Her hands were shaking. "I just want to be anywhere else," she said. "Anywhere but here." As if in answer, headlights appeared up ahead. A green road sign. North Ridge, 6 miles. A new town, one I recognized. I exhaled for the first time in what felt like hours. The sun had fully set. We rolled into North Ridge, relieved. There were lights here, cars, movement. We pulled into a small gas station, normal, clean. Then Kayla pointed to something across the street. A diner, same shape, same chrome trim. I laughed nervously. Guess they all look the same out here. We decided to eat. Inside, the layout was identical. Booths, jukebox, bar counter. I tried to joke again. Déjà vu. Then I looked behind the bar. The clock, same design, same time. 11:17. We sat in a booth. The waitress didn't speak much, just handed us 2 menus, water glasses, half full. Already placed. My heart sank. I turned the menu over and found a receipt tucked inside. It was time-stamped. 11:17 p.m., 20 Uzawa, paid cash. I stood up. So did Kayla. We walked out. The lights behind us shut off again. I started the car. "Let's just keep driving," she whispered. We did, until we ran out of fuel again. And when we did, the next station we saw had a wooden sign. "Welcome to Stowe." Same handwriting. We haven't talked about it since. I don't know how many times we left, or how many towns we saw, but I remember this. Every diner had the same mirror, and in every reflection, we were already sitting inside. Story 2. Every time we checked the rearview mirror, there were more headlights. This happened in the fall of 2020. I was in my last year of college, and 3 of us had decided to take one last trip together before graduation. Just a long weekend, nothing special. A rented cabin a few hours outside of town upstate. The kind of place with no cell reception and no reason to check the time. It was me, Jonah, and Talia. We'd been close since freshman year, and we wanted one more memory before everything changed. We left on a Thursday evening. Jonah was driving. I was in the passenger seat, and Talia was curled up in the back with a blanket and snacks. The drive started off easy. Familiar roads, music low. The kind of lazy conversation that only happens when no one's in a rush. We were maybe an hour into the drive when the first pair of headlights appeared behind us, far back, just on the edge of view. It wasn't anything strange, just a car behind us, probably another traveler taking the same winding route. But then it didn't pass. Jonah slowed down a little. The headlights slowed too. He sped up. They kept the same distance. I glanced at him. "You see that?" "Yeah," he said. "They're not tailgating, just staying back." It wasn't aggressive, not exactly, but it was odd. You'd expect a car to either pass or drop back. This one didn't. It just floated behind us, always the same distance. After 20 minutes, another set of lights appeared. I remember thinking, okay, maybe more drivers are headed up to the woods for the weekend. But when I turned to look again, the first set of lights was still there, unmoved. And the second pair was identical, same spacing, same pale color. Talia sat up in the back. "Why are all their headlights so dim?" That's when I realized it. They weren't standard beams. They had a pale blue tint, the kind you sometimes see with older halogens, but something about them looked filtered, like the light was passing through water. I checked my phone. No bars. Probably some convoy thing, Jonah mumbled. Truckers or something. But the cars weren't trucks. I could see just enough to tell they were smaller, like sedans or old compacts. We made a left turn off the highway onto the two-lane state road that led toward the cabin. No other lights, no signs. The road curved tightly between stretches of pine. We didn't pass a single other vehicle. I looked back. Still two sets of headlights, still matching every move. At the next junction, Jonah took a detour, a sharp right onto an even narrower road. No reason, just curiosity. The headlights followed. Now three pairs, exactly the same spacing. Talia pressed her face to the back window. "None of them have plates." Jonah checked his rear view again. He didn't say anything, but his jaw clenched. We drove for another 15 minutes without talking. When I looked again, 4, then 5. We tried to ignore it. Talia eventually pulled the blanket over her head and muttered that she was just going to sleep. Jonah kept driving in silence. I kept glancing behind us. The lights were still there. Same glow, same space. I tried counting. 1, 2, 3, 5. Talia's voice came out from under the blanket. 7. I turned around. "What? There are 7 now." I looked again. Still 5. "Maybe you're seeing reflections," I said. She didn't answer. She just whispered. I didn't open my eyes. We didn't respond. I looked at Jonah, who looked visibly tense now. He hadn't said a word in 20 minutes. We passed a wooden road sign. It was hand-painted and half-rotted. Moss Road, not maintained. Jonah took it. I didn't ask why. The pavement turned to gravel. The sound changed. Little taps against the undercarriage. The air outside was colder now. I checked the rear view again. Still 5. 6, Talia said. I didn't turn this time. Jonah turned off the music. Complete silence. We came to a wooden bridge, narrow, no rails. We drove across slowly. Below was a shallow ravine filled with old stones and leafless trees. On the other side, we came to a clearing. A dirt loop, probably an old turnaround for trucks. Jonah parked. "Bathroom," he said. He got out, walked into the woods. Talia pulled the blanket off and sat up. She looked paler than before. "Don't look back," she said. "Why?" "There's 7 now." I turned to the window beside her. There were only 5 pairs of lights. "Talia, there's—" I said, "Don't look back." Her voice was calm, but wrong. The kind of calm that comes just after someone gives up on understanding something. Jonah returned. He didn't say anything, just got back in the car and drove, back onto the gravel, back past the bridge. The headlights followed. Talia whispered something. "What?" She didn't answer. Her eyes were closed. Her lips moved. We passed another sign. "No public access beyond this point." The headlights dimmed slightly. And then, when I blinked, there were 7. I didn't see them appear. I didn't notice the moment it happened, but I knew. Talia opened her eyes, looked at me. "I told you." By then, It was past midnight. We were almost to the cabin, but no one wanted to be there anymore. Jonah kept driving, not toward anything, just forward. It was a kind of trance. The road narrowed again, trees pressing close on either side. The moon was high but offered no light. Everything was dim, washed out and colorless. Talia hadn't spoken in almost an hour. She kept her eyes closed, but every 10 minutes she would say a number, quietly. 6, then 7, then still 7. Always the same tone, like she was keeping time. We drove until we saw a roadside turnout, one of those emergency pull-off lanes for brake failure. Gravel and weeds. Jonah pulled into it, turned off the engine. No one spoke. The headlights were still there, but dimmer now, as if they were further away than they looked. I leaned back in my seat and closed my eyes. Everything was quiet. Too quiet. You don't notice how much ambient sound there is. Engine, wheels, wind, until all of it stops. Now it was just breath, our own, and something else. Soft, like someone shifting their weight, far behind us. Then tap on the rear windshield. No wind, no branches, no sound of approach, just a single deliberate tap. Then again, tap, tap. We froze. No one turned around. Tap, 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 tap. 7, exactly 7, then silence. I turned my head slowly. No headlights. Gone. Not faded. Just gone. Talia whispered, "They're closer now." We turned the engine back on and drove without speaking. There was no signal, no GPS, only instinct. We made it to the cabin by 2:30 a.m., parked in front. No lights followed, but that didn't help, because when I got out and checked the rear windshield, there were 7 faint smudges, finger-shaped, evenly spaced. None of us has spoken about that drive since. Sometimes late at night, I still count headlights on long stretches of road. And when I see a pair that doesn't pass or change distance, I check again. Not for one, but for more. Did you enjoy the content and it made a difference for you? Click on Super Thanks and support our work. Story 3. The hitchhiker didn't speak, but her voice played through the car radio. This happened in the winter of 2018. I was driving through northern Oregon after a funeral. It wasn't someone close, an old co-worker, more of a courtesy than anything. But I still made the drive. The service was held in a small town about 3 hours from where I lived. I planned to drive up in the afternoon, sit through the evening service, and drive back that night. By the time I got on the road again, it was past 10 p.m. The sky was heavy with clouds, and it had started to snow lightly. My car was old but reliable. A dark grey 2003 Subaru Forester with nearly 200,000 miles. The radio didn't work properly, so I used one of those cheap FM transmitters for my phone. It crackled, but it played music. The highway was nearly empty. About 40 minutes into the drive, I saw her. She was standing on the shoulder just past a bend, dressed in a long beige coat, one hand lifted slowly as if not entirely sure she wanted to be noticed. Normally, I wouldn't stop, especially not that late. But the way she was standing, it didn't look like someone hitching a ride. It looked like someone who had been standing for hours. The road was freezing. Her coat wasn't enough. I slowed, pulled off onto the shoulder. She didn't move until I opened the passenger door and asked if she needed a ride. She stepped in without a word. I asked where she was headed. Nothing. Just a slow turn of her head, like she was trying to figure out how to answer. Eventually, she placed both hands in her lap and looked out the window. Her skin was pale. Her hair was thin and damp, maybe from the snow, maybe not. I waited a moment, then slowly eased back onto the road. We drove in silence. After a minute, the radio picked up again. It wasn't music, it was a voice, female, soft. "It's colder now, do you feel it?" I reached for the phone. Maybe it was a podcast app opening by mistake, but my screen was dark, locked, no apps running. I turned the transmitter off. The voice kept playing. "It's colder now." Then silence. I glanced at the passenger seat. The woman hadn't moved. Her hands were still folded, her face blank, but she was smiling, not warmly, like someone testing out the motion of their mouth for the first time. I turned the radio off completely. She kept smiling, and for the next 10 miles we didn't speak. But every so often the radio crackled to life. Same voice, same tone. "You can hear me now." I started feeling nauseous around mile marker 203. It wasn't motion sickness. It was something else. Like my body was reacting to something my brain hadn't caught up to yet. The cabin temperature dropped slightly. I noticed because I'd turned the heat up to full, but now it was back to neutral, as if the dial had moved. I looked over at her again, still, but her head was tilted just slightly now, like she was listening for something distant. The radio crackled. Then silence. Then, "You should ask her name." I didn't. I pulled off onto the next turnout, a wide gravel loop mostly used by truckers, no other cars. I stopped the engine. The radio continued playing static. When I turned to speak to her, she wasn't there. The seat was empty, the door hadn't opened, no sound of it closing, just gone. I turned in my seat and looked into the back. Empty. Then, "You were never supposed to pick me up." It came from the radio, but I swear it echoed from the back seat. I leaned closer to the console, turned the radio dial all the way down. Silence. I opened the door and stepped out. The air was biting cold. Snow was falling steadily now. Visibility had dropped. I checked the passenger side. No footprints, no marks on the floor. The passenger seat, though, was damp, just enough to see where the back of her coat had pressed against the cloth. A perfect outline. Inside again, I sat in the driver's seat, unsure what to do. The voice returned. "You stopped. Why did you stop?" It wasn't demanding. It was curious, like a child watching an anthill. Then my name, clear, sharp, precise. "Jason." I turned the engine back on and started driving. Faster this time. The snow thickened. I drove another 20 minutes, then 30. Then the same sign came up again. "Welcome to Cleavers," a tiny town I'd passed on the way up. I'd already passed it once going back. Now it was ahead of me again. The radio. "You should have kept going. You should have ignored me." I pressed harder on the gas. But the road kept looping. The same trees, the same mile marker. 203. She was gone. But she hadn't left. Eventually, I pulled over and killed the engine. Again. This time I got out and started walking. I didn't know where I was headed. Maybe a house, maybe nowhere. The snow was heavier now, but the wind was still absent. That made everything worse. Just soundless white. I walked for 10 minutes, then 20. No signs, no lights, only trees. Then I heard it. Faint static. Crackling. I turned. There was a small battery-powered radio sitting on a stump. Old. Yellowed with age. A small antenna raised. It was on, and the voice came through it, not broken, not distorted, crystal clear. "Jason, stop walking." I stepped closer. "You left the car," it said, "but we're not done driving." The snow around the stump was undisturbed, no footprints. I picked the radio up. It was warm, not like something left outside, like something freshly used. I dropped it, turned around and ran, back toward the road. I reached the car faster than expected. The headlights were still on. Only now, the passenger door was ajar. I got in, closed it, locked everything. The radio was off, but her voice returned. Not through the speakers, from the rearview mirror. Not sound, just movement. Her reflection. Smiling. No sound. Until the radio clicked back on. And it kept going. I drove. I didn't stop until the snow cleared. The sun rose, and the mountains changed. New signs, different towns. When I got home, I threw out the transmitter. I didn't use the radio for weeks. But sometimes, even when the volume is down, I hear the static, and just beneath it, her voice. "We're not done driving."